Hello people, Edwin Learnard here. In this YouTube segment I'm going to be giving you my bold, peerless prognostications and predictions for the NFL in this week 11 of 2012. Let me start off with the Buffalo-Miami game. I think the Buffalo Bills showed me a little something last week. It was far from a lackluster performance. Even though they lost, they had to go into a tough environment in New England where they're everything but invincible there. And to me, they showed something. Ryan Fitzpatrick and everything with them, the passing, running game, everything seemed to look a little better. And I think it's a good harbinger of things to come. Now Miami, they might have their sights set on a wild card, and they still have some playoff aspirations. I understand that, but Buffalo is at home, divisional opponent, familiarity. I think I'm going to go with Buffalo in this one. Next game, we have the Atlanta Falcons at home versus Arizona. I think last week we saw something of an aberration with Atlanta. No team is really invincible in this league. We all have days where our deficiencies maybe are exploited somewhat, and I think maybe that was a good thing for Atlanta to get this one loss out of the way. There's no pressure on them now for undefeated season. They can go back and concentrate on football, and I believe they will prevail at home against an Arizona team who looked somewhat impressive early in the season, and now in this last 4 or 5 games or so has not looked nearly as good. Next game, I'm going to take Dallas at home over Cleveland. The Dallas Cowboys, they showed some life last week, and yes, they did beat a Philadelphia team that, in my opinion, might be a little bit overrated. And Michael Vick, with his concussive state or whatever he's in, he's very. And it seems like for whatever reason he's very vulnerable to injuries. I guess that's attributed at least somewhat to his lack of protection on that offensive line. Dallas looks like right now they're playing pretty good, and Cleveland, they are the Browns. They might make this a tighter game than people think, but this is at Dallas. Cleveland's defense might be a little, it might be okay, but it's not going to be enough to beat the Cowboys. So I'll go with Dallas in that one. Next game we got Detroit at home against Green Bay Packers. I think Detroit is everything but done for the season. They are at home. They might make this a competitive game, but Green Bay is starting to get their mojo going. I think they're getting into a rhythm and they're getting their momentum at just the right time, and the Packers, I believe, will prevail. Next game, Kansas City Chiefs at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now Cincinnati, I didn't really give them that much hope last week, as you remember, playing the defending Super Bowl champion New York Giants. But, they definitely, they won a game that they had to. The Giants, unfortunately, I don't know, I wouldn't say complacency set in, but I think they almost played like, they had another week, to go, to win. It was, to me, Cincinnati was the one that came out with more intensity, and they wound up winning. And going into Kansas City, I think they're good enough to beat the Chiefs team that's only won one game this season and has only had one lead in one game, which was, of course, the last game against the Steelers. So next game, Washington Redskins at home. I'm going to take them over Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, I think they're about done now. They got a lot of distraction. As Andy Reid, is he going to retain his position? How long is he going to stay? What's going on with Michael Vick? Can their quote-unquote surrogate quarterback do an adequate job to at least keep the Eagles in contention or keep them competitive for the rest of the season? I think Washington should win this one. Next game, Carolina at home against Tampa Bay. This is one of those games where I guess you could say I'm quote-unquote ambivalent on. This could go either way. Carolina has been struggling, but the resurgent Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing at a much higher level now, and they, the last 4 or 5 games or weeks or what have you, they've shown me something, and I think they're going to keep their momentum going and keep their winning ways, and I think Tampa Bay will win this game. Next game, Houston at home against Jacksonville. Obviously, I'm going to take Houston Texans. They're almost one of the few sure things consistently week in and week out. I can count on Houston, I believe, to win this game. Jacksonville, they're passing. An offense is something to be desired, with the exception of Maurice Jones-Drew. This team is deficient in virtually all phases. And, to go on the road to beat Houston, I think, is really inconceivable right now. So I'll take the Houston Texans. Next game, St. Louis at home against the New York Jets. I'm a New York Jet fan, but I hate to be a pessimist on them, but I believe their season, for all intents and purposes, are done. They got to go into St. Louis, who has been tougher at home and tougher in general than, I anticipated. St. Louis Rams, played San Francisco dead even last week. Even had opportunities, I felt, to beat them, but perhaps didn't quite capitalize on it. So I think St. Louis should get this one. Now, Oakland at home against New Orleans. Now the Saints, I might be the incorrigible optimist, but I think, even if they have a little, tough schedule coming up after this game, I think they're still a team that's a viable playoff contender, and I don't think they're going to squander that opportunity to get a little closer to the playoffs and, playing Oakland, even though it is a road game, and Oakland probably make this a competitive ball game. I like Drew Brees. He said something to the effect that this book on the 2012 Saints team has not been written yet. Very valid point. Let's see how the season plays out. So I'm going to take the Saints in this one. Next game, Denver at home versus San Diego. Denver, is pretty much the obvious pick here. These are two teams that are going in opposite directions. They might not have much separation on one loss column, but I think in Denver right now, they are the better team. They are at home. I think Peyton Manning and company, they're starting to play very cohesively, and they've gotten, all their proponents are all working on the same page. I believe Denver, takes this one probably fairly easily at home. Next game, New England at home versus Indianapolis. Well, New England, is a team. They've been there, done that. They have, as far as player personnel, up and down, head and shoulders above Indy. Yes, the Colts have been quote unquote lucky, in a way, in receiving Andrew Luck and Providential, and they have played, very well. Indianapolis might very well get in as a wild card this year, but I think, what it comes down to is this game are just like some intangibles, especially New England's experience, and I believe New England will win this game at home. Next game, Pittsburgh Steelers at home and the Baltimore Ravens. I originally was going to go with the Steelers until what happened in last night's game when Ben Roethlisberger is injured, and even though his status might be uncertain right now, even if he comes back and plays this coming week, he might not be 100%. And the Ravens, to me, even though they've been been somewhat decimated with injuries, I still think a team, Pittsburgh without 100% Roethlisberger, even at home, will lose to Baltimore. Baltimore did sweep the season series last season, and I think they can win. They could very easily make this 3 in a row, and I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, last but not least, San Francisco 49ers and Chicago Bears. Now this game is it's really a toss-up because you got two, right now appears to be powerhouses in the NFC. The tiebreaker is San Francisco. They are at home. Now, granted, they didn't play exceptionally well last week against St. Louis, but I don't detract a lot from St. Louis because they came in there on all cylinders. I don't think San Francisco will be winless in 2 consecutive home games. Chicago, they did not really look great. The last week, I understand that weather was inclement in Chicago. I wonder if it was maybe coming over off of a very emotional win over the Titans where they just annihilated them. And you don't want to ever think a team expended too much energy in the week before before they play their next opponent. But I'm wondering if that might have been the case with the Bears in their loss to Houston this past week. So anyway, I'm going to go with, and also Jay Cutler's, if he doesn't come back especially, that's another plus for San Francisco. So I'm going to go with the 49ers in this one. Well, anyway, people, those are my predictions for Week 11 of the 2012 NFL season, and I'll see you next week.